Hey, Lauren.
Hey.
I got one more dog to let out, but I can do that when people are gathering. Hey, Charles, good to see you again.
Hey,
All right.
Charles.
Sam, good to see you. It's been a while. Tees, hi, good to meet you there. Didn't seen your name around, but
So I'm going to go on silent mode for a few seconds while I let one more dog out.
okay. Cool. I'm gonna go off camera for a little bit. Hi, Lauren.
Hey.
Nice to see you. Gonna hide for a few. I'm still setting up my computer and stuff.
Oh, cool.
You guys know the Cat in the Hat movie? Did I talk about this? I probably did. It's one of my favorite scenes. The cupcake scene in the Cat in the Hat movie.
No.
Do you know this movie? It's a good one for the
No.
kids. It's good for us too. Anyway, there's this one scene I can find. Maybe I will share it in the chat. Actually, it's epic enough. Where he goes, I'm so excited. They're doing like this fake ad for this like cupcake or the amazing cupcakeerator. Anyway, I totally digress, but
Okay.
I'm gonna find the scene and you'll know what I mean. It's a short scene. Yeah. So this is my first GCC call in like a dog's age, if you will. Took Lauren to get me to come out.
Hey, Stacy. Hey, Jaswinder.
I'll be right on. I'm just feeding the dog.
Stacy, hi. Everybody's got dogs happening here.
Got 5 of them. 5 golden retrievers. About 300 pounds of dog and
Wow.
growing weekly.
They're wonderfully friendly dogs.
Oh, those are the perfect dogs.
Yeah.
Hera, come here. Hera, come here. Come here. Come here. All right. Go meet some friends. Who's this? There's Hera. Okay. Say bye. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Hey, Glenn.
Hey, good to be with you guys.
Kayla. Good to meet you. Lauren, you sold a lot of tickets today.
It's not me.
Somebody did the marketing on this. Hey, just Kayla, while you're still gathering, could you let us know where you are, especially what time zone you're in?
Sure, I'm in the Pacific time zone, and I'm here in California, Southern California.
Southern California. I used to be in the Bay Area for over 3 decades.
Ooh, one of my favorite places.
Saratoga, California, if you know where that is.
Not really.
It's just south of Cupertino on the way to Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with Santa Cruz.
Yeah. Eric, good to see you also.
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
Hey, Lauren. Okay.
Hey.
Not visible. Who's not visible? Oh, Stacy's not visible. Okay, all right. All right, Tees, good to see you again also. Kayla, for your introduction, I'm going to do about 30 seconds, okay? First, though, did you come here based on an announcement or did one of us invite you personally?
Based on an announcement or a bulletin, if you will, from Facebook.
Oh, nice, cool. Okay, so the brief 30-second introduction is, this particular session on Saturdays we do weekly, and there are 4 weekly sessions, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week, based on this thing called the Global Challenges Foundation. They issued a RFP about 3 years ago, and some of us, very few of us, actually responded to that RFP. And the RFP asked for what is a global governance model that would bring about a better world? So we submitted a proposal in October/September of 2017. And our proposal was we need to figure out how to get everybody's ideas to mesh, how everybody can work together, listen to everybody, get the best of everybody. That's basically the 5-second summary of the proposal. And so as a result, these conversations have continued ever since October 2017. Thursday basically is anything goes, bring up whatever you want. Friday is a very specific thread on appreciation that's being led by Gertrud Bext from Germany. That's Friday. Saturday is what we call barn raising / foundation laying. And I moderate this and I host this. And we're now in about a 2 or 3 month experiment. The experiment is, how do we best achieve focus? And what are the moderation styles that we're trying to develop and improve so that we can actually achieve focus? And so for the past several weeks, each one of us has been taking a particular Saturday. Today happens to be Lauren's day. So Lauren is about ready to go as soon as I release the floor to her. And just to finish the picture, Sundays is moderated by Doug Breitbart. He's out of New York. And it's called Unblocking. So it addresses all these things that keep people from working together, people's triggers, people's emotional readiness, communication difficulties, whatever. Okay, those are called blocking. So the session is called Unblocking. So that's the structure of these conversations on a weekly basis. And we keep all recordings of our videos. So if you do not want to be recorded, please don't say anything, or please turn off your video, but just know that this is being recorded and then shared. With that, then we normally go into a very informal, opt-in, non-mandatory check-in round where we can just say, hey, here's what's happening for me right now, here's how I'm arriving, if people want to do that sort of thing. And then at the tail end, we'll do about 10 or 15 minutes of a checkout as well. And other than that, we're going to give Lauren most of the next 70 or 80 minutes, maybe more, to present her topic of focus and her moderation skills about how we can actually achieve it. The last 20 or 30 minutes remaining, we'll go into a retrospective of, did we achieve focus, and how was the moderation style effective in bringing about that focus? So sorry to go on a fairly long introduction, but hopefully that's clear. Stacy, can you add something here?
Yeah, in the interest of accuracy, Doug's out of Michigan, not New York.
Oh, that's right. He used to be in New York, but now he's in Michigan. That's right. Yeah, his house burned down. All right. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't be laughing about that, but my memory's gone. Okay. Okay, so I am fresh from about 2 hours of sleep last night. I just got done talking to Jaswinder about 3 or 4 hours ago. So I've got a whole 2 hours of sleep underneath me. So I'm about ready to release the floor to any optional check-ins before we get into Lauren's session. Welcome, everybody.
Okay, may I check in? I'm Ties van der Veer, living in the Netherlands, Delft. And I was connecting Belgium with Brazil. And Brazil is economy. And Brazil is E2C tokens, and Belgium is Happonomy. So this is a new currency system. But they didn't know each other. So one guy from Belgium didn't know the Brazilian guy. I connected them. There have been 2 sessions, and there is one session was this week. So this has been recorded and shared somewhere. So if you're interested, ask me. That's it, what I want to say.
Thank you, Ties. Glad you found your camera and your microphone. Okay, next.
Hello, yeah, go ahead first,
Jaswinder?
I finished, thank you.
Oh, that's it. Okay. All right, Glenn.
Yeah, my name is Glenn, so I'm located in Norway, a little bit outside of Oslo, and I've been participating in many of these conversations for the last few years, and the last year or so, it's primarily on the Saturdays that I've had a chance to attend. So very interested in all kinds of topics, and especially co-evolution, learning, increasing understanding through conversations. So yeah.
Thank you, Glenn.
I can jump in, just checking in from Zurich, Switzerland. Co-founded Collective Intelligence Collaboratory with Lauren at the beginning of this year, coming out of a series of sessions, weekly sessions, and others loosely called the Practical Knowledge Ecology, which many of you have been a part of, or some of us here. But yeah, we sort of distilled it into a container, Kiko Lab, and kind of really hit the ground running, sort of headlong into the pandemic. I mean, before that, we were busy enough, and now we're just sort of ever more driven to make sense. And I'm sitting in the center of Zurich in the old town, where schools went back this week on a limited schedule, but the kids are back, and people are out in the streets, no masks, like nothing happened, kind of thing. Although I have to say, I saw one other mask besides my own. I went out today to the green market, which started again, so I got some fresh greens and stuff. A funny snapshot, haha. I never saw this before, but I saw a couple of people walking around with masks around their ears below their chins. So this is like a new thing, I guess. Just, that's it. Check.
To me, that's reminiscent of teenage boys wearing jeans below their butt. That seems to be
Yeah.
for me. Anyway, hey, I wanted to say before others do the optional check-in, I may appear rude. I'm not intending to be, but there's about 2 other dogs that need to go in and out. So I'll be like taking a few seconds here and there to let a dog in and out. So please do know I'm not trying to show any disrespect. I'm just trying to make sure the dogs don't pee inside. Okay, thanks. Who'd like to go next? So Kayla, may I put you slightly on the spot and ask you to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Sorry, just finished a raspberry. My name is Kayla. I'm here in Southern California. I am a Polynesian cultural arts instructor, and I have been interested in the GCC. I've been reading and looking through the Facebook. This is my first meeting for Saturday, but I've been on Thursday and then Friday. So I'm here to listen to what everybody has to say, to connect with everybody, and I'm very excited. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Might you say one more sentence about Polynesian art construction?
So I am a dance instructor, but very, specific to Tahitian dance. I can nerd out about it, if you will. And also,
actually, do you have any links that you could share with us of your work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and send my website. My vision for the future, people have asked me this, what do you see yourself in 5-10 years? I see myself as in my community, just providing a safe place for people to express themselves. And then also a place for all the cultures to gather together, not just Polynesian cultures, but other cultures where you learn about different lifestyles, communities, and also cultural art expression, especially for people who are interested but don't know what it's about. And for people who want to belong to something but just don't know where to go.
Hey, thank you very much. Just 2 quick points before we keep going. I'm also from the neighborhood. I'm from Taiwan, but it's generally in that vicinity. And then secondly, we here, or at least I here, am trying to make a distinction between safety versus disagreement. I'm hoping that we can actually learn how to disagree and explore differences well. So I want to make sure that at least I broach that subject, because the idea of comfort versus discomfort in disagreement, I think, is actually one of the blocks that we're trying to experiment with. Okay, so thanks. Okay, who'd like to go?
I'm good. I'm Stacy in New York. Happy to be here. Been coming for, I guess, over a year, maybe 2 years. That's it.
I'll just quickly say hi. I'm Eric. I'm in Pennsylvania. And one thing that's exciting this week is there's a new version of the Beaker browser, which is a decentralized web browser, which is peer-to-peer. So something I'll be exploring in the near future. Thanks.
Is it a Tor derivative?
It's the next version of Beaker, which uses a new version of hyperdrive. So it's a better networking performance is expected.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for checking in. Alex, we're in a round of check-ins now, so I think most of us have gone except for you and Lauren and maybe me.
I'm sorry, I'm late, but I was trying to log in. I had problems with my machine. I think I've got a clogged up hard disk. I need more space, so that's an issue. I go to sleep's an issue too. I wake up and find programs running that I didn't start. So there could be a glitch. But the collaboration with the localization of meetups is a great idea, and I'm looking forward to reading more about that on the website, where Dove posted an item about collaborology. But I haven't read it all yet. I just noticed it because I just woke up. I've changed my sleeping arrangements so that I can wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning here in Australia and meet people overseas freshly awoken as if I just got up in the morning. So that's a difference too. A different mindset is in the difference between having woken up 15 minutes ago and having woken up 12 hours ago, when the mind is clogged up with the day's activities. So that's a difference. Clear thinking, early morning arising. So I'm here and looking forward to the conversation. Over.
Thanks, Alex. For Caleb's benefit, yeah, Alex is remarkable in that it's always 2 a.m. where he is, and he's one of the most regular attendees for a lot of these sessions here. Let me do a quick check-in. I'm actually in Camano Island. I used to live in the Bay Area, but I moved up here in 2016. And so what I do is I'm actually, my actual real title is Technology Evangelist for a software company in San Jose, actually Sunnyvale, California. And I used to be there for quite a while in a number of different companies. But right now, let's say my extracurricular interest is in pursuing this study of successful scalable collaboration, which I call collaborology. And there's a number of tools, techniques, practices, lessons learned that I'm trying to compile. I'm experimenting, hopefully with Eric and others, regarding a tool called The Brain. And my blog is at supersametry.com. And I am actually in connection with Eric. You might want to take note of this. I just had a couple of interactions with Jerry Mikulski this week. Jerry notoriously has the world's biggest brain. It sounds like 400,000 nodes using the brain. And so he's actually launching something pretty exciting. So that's pretty cool. Let's talk about that sometime later. So anyway, I'm very interested in collaborology as an offshoot of what Douglas Carl Engelbart did way back 50 years ago. He's the fellow who invented the mouse and a bunch of other information technologies, including word processing, including outline processing, including on-screen editing, including multimedia, blah, blah, blah. I could go on and on again forever, like you could with art. So anyway, I'll stop there right now. That's a quick introduction to me. And at this point, unless anybody else has anything that's really burning and super urgent that needs to get said, here is our esteemed speaker and moderator and focuser for today, Ms. Lauren Gagnon-Moore, or Moore Gagnon?
Mignon.
Gagnon.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm supposed to be focusing. Oh my. So, what I am presenting on is completely relevant to this group because one of Sam's passions is forming a knowledge repository. And every week, Sam religiously records these videos. He puts them up on YouTube, and there's, you know, you can follow along. There's a corresponding document, and he includes the chat. So he takes a long time to do all of this processing. And it's been kind of a continual source of frustration for Sam, that sometimes he feels like he's kind of like the one who's most enthusiastic about doing this. And he always kind of hopes that that others will rise up and suddenly start doing these kind of things. But so far, that hasn't totally happened like he's imagined it. So what I have been into for the past few weeks is studying how we can better record our conversations while we're in the flow, using different artistic methods and roles that sometimes go unnoticed or unappreciated, or that we don't even think about. We could do, yeah, Charles.
Can I just quickly ask Sam, what is it in a nutshell, if you would, what you hope for or envision, since Lauren pointed to that, but it's not explicit. Please.
Okay, Lauren, should I respond to that? Because this could take more than a minute.
No, please.
No, I mean the minute version, or 2 minutes, or just
Okay.
nugget size.
So I'll try to make it as brief as I can. What I would like is for us to have some facility where the ideas and mental models I have are, in a way, understandable and manipulable by you. So in other words, if I could create a diagram of my thoughts, or if I could see your diagram of your thoughts, and I could connect my node to your node in some meaningful way, like this supports that, or this contradicts that, or this, you know, gives a different perspective on that. If there's that way of connecting our brains and our thoughts together. And if we could do that more than just with 2 people, with 3 people, with 4 people, but if we could actually do this effectively to large numbers of people, and then we could actually share our knowledge, share our insights, clarify our language, clarify our triggers, be able to co-vision something that we want, and then move towards it. That would be one very, very, very shallow view. Okay, I could go on and on about this forever. That's one very shallow representation of what I really would like to see. This is Doug Engelbart's dynamic knowledge repository that he was envisioning way back 50 years ago. And we have wikis, we have Google, we have multimedia, we have YouTube, but we don't really have this thing yet, okay? They're big blobs. There's a big video, or there's a big document, there's a big set of, but there's no way to connect finite, you know, very granular, precise ideas yet together, so they can create models together and then execute those models. So anyway, that's a quick introduction.
Thanks. That was good job. Just a couple of keywords maybe. What's missing is, I could suggest like interoperability, duct tape, this kind of thing. Do you want to throw, anyone maybe just throw what's missing in there?
I could go on and on about what's missing.
Just a few keywords.
Anyone, I would say that I share what Lauren is saying, and I've been thinking that, and also Joachim Strahl is another member of the In the Flow camp, and I think Sam is saying, how can he in the flow make relations to other people's knowledge, and at the same time, I'm interested in how it can be validated and categorized the way that you have privacy distinct from public, if there is such a category anymore.
So let me add a quick thought to that, okay? My description was not specifically in the flow or out of flow. It is whenever one is available. In other words, whenever I'm available to address what the group has created, okay? How can I interact with it? And now I know we're taking quite a bit of time away from Lauren, so I just wanted to say, apologize for that little bit of a question, but I wanted to address Charles's question here.
No, it's actually, it's totally in line with what I'm doing. So it's not, we're not out of focus.
Need to know what we're talking about. Like if we're really, we have a lot of raw materials as I see it, turning over to Lauren in a minute, but you know, and we're in a similar let's say, position or trying to get in position over at the Kiko Lab with regard to, yeah, the recordings and the workflow and all that stuff, but then how to kind of make it actionable and what's missing in a tangible sense, like that we know or we can envision or that we don't even know. Anyway, Lauren, please.
So may I take 30 more seconds, Lauren? I mean, I'm chomping at the bit. Okay. So the idea here is this: if we have the raw audio or the raw video or even raw handwritten, scrawled, or typed text notes of things, okay, imagine that as a substrate, the closest thing to reality to what actually happened. Okay, other than being there, that's kind of like the best we've got. Now, outside of that, there are things we can do to improve that. We can actually transcribe it. We can spell check it. We can, do speaker identification on it. We can organize it into paragraphs. We might be able to hashtag it. We might be able to just extract gems, as others have talked about. So there's ways of using that substrate to create derivative works. So each of those items could then go into a blog or go into an article or go into a knowledge base or go into a book or go into an interview or go into an audio soundbite or go into you can imagine, right? So basically the point is, how can you connect what's being said anywhere to what actually happened? To me, one of the best ways to apply this is in this whole political realm where people say things without it being connected anywhere to reality, okay? If we could have a way of tracking the epistemology or the provenance or the truthiness of what's being said and say, okay, here's the supporting evidence, here's the contradictory evidence, you make your decision, but there's 99% of material here, there's 1% of material here, is that significant, okay? And let everybody make that kind of determination. So the idea is that we can get better and better with our collaboration, and we can create more and more interesting constructs together, rather than just using who's got the most money, who can actually spout off the loudest, who can actually control the mass media, and who can actually, make the simplest possible decisions, So anyway, that's another part of my minor rant. So thank you for letting me do that.
What's the quick definition of truthiness, Sam? Please, I'm sorry, Lauren. Truthiness, I mean, I just got to ask.
Stephen Colbert word. Obviously, it means, how well something sounds, I use it to sort of poke fun at this thing where people just say, I just know, okay? Or that just sounds right. Or, obviously it has to be that. And I want to basically go through all of that crap and say, is it founded on science, facts, theory, reality, sound reasoning, sound thinking, sound experience? And you can argue, what is, but the whole point is everyone should be able to do that. And everyone should have all of that tracking. And if there is no substance supporting a claim, hopefully it gets quickly debunked, if there's a lot of contradictory information and evidence. So anyway, we could go into that in more detail also.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's move
I'd
on.
love to make a comment too, but in favor of brevity, go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, so to keep things on focus, as Sam said, he was talking about when you have a knowledge repository, when you record these meetings, you can make derivative works. And that's what I'm specializing in. How do we make these derivative works? And how can we use a knowledge repository to make a bunch of cool stuff? And how do we create the conditions to do this on the fly? And so I've been doing this for a while, and I'll just show you quickly kind of, what I do. So the Kiko Lab holds talks that are very similar to this, where we discuss certain subjects, and they're, an hour and a half long. And hang on just a minute. I'll share my screen. And we record those videos, put them on YouTube. Then we use Workflowy to, hang on for knowledge repository. So these are our roundtables discussions, and so we list the video, the date, the transcript, who was there, and summary and notes. Then we tag these notes. So we can do some quick work later on, like I tag something if it's related to software, it's mentioning a person, mentioning an organization, or it's something wise that I want to remember. I tag all of that stuff. Then what I did afterwards was I made a map in Coggle. So we had these hour-and-a-half videos, and I will post this in the chat. Hang on just a second. Sorry, I just stop sharing. So here is just kind of, I reduce these to 3 or 5 minute videos from an hour and a half. So that's part of the process. The problem with all of this stuff is that it takes so long to do. So I'm spending so much time. No one appreciates it and no one cares. And so
Few
few
people
people.
appreciate
I
What?
do. I
A few
appreciate
people
that.
do appreciate.
Yeah, a few do.
A few.
Not many though. So of course, you know, what I've been wondering is how do we so how do we make the presentation layer? So 3 minutes is good, but it takes me so long to edit each video, almost like 8 hours for an hour and a half video to edit it down into something that, I mean, I could edit it in quicker than that, but it wouldn't be like a cohesive story. So that still takes a long time. So now I'm into how can we edit it on the fly by each taking a small little portion of the work and taking different roles. So we each have a little thing that's hopefully that's not seen as more work, but something that interests us, that we like to do, and that might reveal a hidden talent that we can express. So bringing us more fully into the conversation instead of just piling on some work. Because the work, inviting people to do like the work thing, that hasn't been so successful so far. So Sam and I haven't found a lot of people like joining us in this knowledge repository mission. So here's my new idea. So some of the work that I've been doing is I'm going to show you my Pinterest page. These I've been tweeting out, and we've made an Instagram account. Let me see, share screen again.
Did you hear Lauren's tweeting?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is historical. I just got to say.
Charles, I gotta say, when Lauren threw up workflowy, I just about keeled over. Okay, I'm so excited.
No, it's because you recommended it, Sam. So I'm listening to you.
I'm so appreciative.
Yeah. So I will again here. Let me stop the share. I will put this in the chat. So this is my Pinterest page where a lot of you will find yourselves. I've been taking quotes from these. You know, when I tag the knowledge repository wisdom. Then I can just pull out these quotes. And so I'm a graphic designer, so I've been exploring ways that I can use my graphic design to better illustrate these conversations. So it makes it more fun for me because I can kind of, it's easy and fun and natural to me, and it helps other people who are there kind of follow the conversation. Just like, you know, Colin has these maps that he does, but they're kind of like maps of his brain, and the things that I do are maps of my brain, and kind of how I see this conversation. So let me see what else. So let me
Just
show
note,
you.
let me note that it's very difficult, as Sam desires, to map brains together. And I've got lots to say on that, and that's what I'm kind of here doing, thinking, how could you get two people to sit down and not splash, but actually map together?
Yes, and so I think it has to do with allowing people more self-expression. That's I think is the key to it, and kind of building up these profiles as we go along in the flow. I think that will help a lot to see and understand each other, and start to recognize patterns in people's conversations and what they want. Because when you see, and I'll show you, I started to put people's quotes together, and when you see them all together, you can have a faster sense of who everyone is, in my opinion. So like today for the collective intelligence block party, I'll show you. I was just kind of mapping out the conversations visually using images. So last week we have a conversation on the divine feminine, in which I take these quotes. This is probably my favorite one. Which is twisted more, the carrot or us for throwing it out? Food is commodified while women are objectified, and when they don't fit the perfect mold, they're seen as less than and thrown away, literally or figuratively. So here I'm using this software called Miro to quickly find images and write things. I have quotes from all these different people. And so you can kind of follow this conversation like a storyboard. You can also, within this board, you can see the original video. You can go to that. And then there's some notes that Nolan took during this. He says the minutes kind of in what pretty much happened during this meeting. So all is there in one single document.
Is that link something you could share also, Lauren? The Miro?
Yeah, I can also share that. Hang
The
on just a
pictures are
second.
public, aren't they?
Yes, I can share that. Yeah. So hang on just a second. I will can view.
But that is quite a chunk of work, for sure.
Yeah, it's great to see. By the way, Lauren, your microphone sometimes gets a little staticky, or is that just for me?
Does it?
Anybody else notice that?
A little bit.
Maybe it's just me.
No, it was a little crunchy. I think it's a cable, maybe.
Oh, I just saw Eric's thing in the notes. I just went to Ray Powell's one of his new CoGov things, so I'm following him.
Yeah, I think there's some synergy in what you're talking about with what he's looking at. Just not sure what yet.
Okay. And so what David Boville has been going on about recently with Robert Best and this new filmmaker guy who just came on the scene, his name is Carlos, is identifying these conversational roles. And what David came up with are things like Sumerian, who sums up a conversation at the end, that they can have just this pithy little conversation summary. A sorcerer who goes out looking for support for people's points, like links that are relevant or basically information to back up what people are saying. And so other sources that we can look at. The poet, someone who, somewhat like the Sumerian, who can maybe do some spoken word poetry summarizing what a conversation was about. An iconographer, which I do. This is what I'm doing. The cartographer, which Colin usually fulfills in this group. And other roles that I can't think of right now, but I thought maybe we could talk about what we all could do in conversations that could help the conversation in the flow. There's also new things that are coming along, new technology like Twitch, which is actually a gaming platform that lets you stream live video. But what Twitch does is allow you, it's like a cue button for video, which allows you to hit a button when someone has just said something really profound and you want to record that. It's like a minute, it gives you like a minute worth of recording, and you can actually record backwards in time. So you can say, like, after someone says something, you can hit a button and be like, oh, record that backwards because I'd like what someone said. So that could be another way if we use Twitch just in the flow. So you don't have to have someone going along afterwards and processing these things. Like you could just, while you're doing it, if someone actually learned how to use Twitch, you could have them doing that each time and come out of there with 10-minute long clips on super relevant, tweetable kinds of videos that
Did you
are
guys
really
test
handy.
it out yet with Twitch?
No, we haven't. We have to find someone who really knows what they're doing. But we'd like to get into that.
My daughter is 16. I think she spends a lot of time on Discord and Twitch and a number of other facilities that are really interesting for gamers and for, there's this class of social media where people just do things that people just watch. I'm astonished. Like you could be like drawing on your tablet for 8 hours and just talking, and people watch this stuff, and I'm just astonished. So anyway, there's a number of platforms that I'm not familiar with that this is really similar, I think, to what you're describing.
Yeah, I've been exploring Twitch as well, and I think you're onto something there, Lauren, because what you're describing is a regimented process of some sort, whether that has to flow in the present, and people can capture things and say, oh, I want the last 10 seconds to it. So yeah, I think Twitch is a great idea. What was I going to say? I had something else I wanted to say, but I got carried away with the idea. No, that's really good. Oh yes, you're changing the flow of the conversation. And that's one of the problems I had as a cartographer. People want me to work silently and then magically produce it and without any input. Like, and they say, oh, well, let me input, but they don't want you to stop during the conversation, say this was important or this was a gem. So to bookmark, like you're saying, it is kind of a game. And that's why I think Twitch is a good mindset format for that. Because you are kind of all getting together saying, we're going to have a conversation in which we're going to know how we're going to curate it and hand it along with the roles. So yeah, this sounds really interesting. So that's why I think that people have to buy in on it to have that conversation. And when you go to a gaming platform, you're kind of buying into that platform. Go ahead, Sam.
To me, it seems like the objective first needs to be understood and at least somewhat agreed, because whether you're optimizing for the real-time experience, you would make decisions differently. If you're optimizing for the eventual artifact that's being produced, you would also make a number of decisions differently. And so until we have those agreements, my approach has been just do the best job possible on the substrate to make it even usable, or at least that it exists. Okay, that's why I do the recording. That's why I put the transcript in there. That's why I put the notes in there. That's why I identify the speakers in there. I put a link to the audio. I put a link to the video, et cetera, et cetera. So I make it at least somewhat usable, so that eventually, Colin or I or Lauren or anybody else can come by and cut out, hey, here's a 2-minute 40-second, gem, quote unquote, and let's see what that can do, and we can then compose that with something else. So anyway, that's been my approach, is to really see if we can make a level of material available so other people can start doing other things. And I'm really happy to see Lauren and Charles and others really jumping on this. So.
Yeah, and the getting ready Charles? Is the part that I suggest. The getting ready as far as preparing for that space and mindset to enter it. And the conversation community, that level of has just basically been at the foundational level to exist. And so that's why I keep proposing, and get a bit of pushback when I try new things. But if you go to a new platform, that kind of, everybody's got to buy in to go into that platform. So could we bring this back to conversation community, or would everybody just go to, GCC, or would everybody just go to Twitch?
No, that's the simplicity of this. And Charles, just wait 1 second. Is that we don't all have to go to one platform. That's actually the opposite. So what this is about is just having someone choose a special gift.
The mindset of going to different platforms.
Yes, it's not like that. So a person would just choose whatever gift they have. We don't all have to go to the same platform. Or they don't even have to use technology. It's just like, what kind of role are you going to play in this conversation? And it could be a role of just like a facilitator or an empath, or like someone like Stacy, who's super helpful because she pays a lot of attention to people's body language and just who's saying what, and just has good she just listens and pays attention and kind of knows what's going on, even under the words being spoken. So it's like, kind of identifying these roles that people already are doing and then making up new ones if people want them. So Charles?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to bring it back to one of the things, just to try to bring it back on track in regard to the flow of the moment and in real time, sense making in real time, and just something that I kind of articulated this week and this last week in the Metacogs Open Learning Commons call, which are really recommended if people don't know. That on Tuesdays, noon Pacific, 9 o'clock Central Europe, we have weekly calls, really great, some usual and unusual suspects. But so just the thing about, Colin used the word bookmarking, and I'm thinking in terms of like bookmarking within a conversation, like in other words, time stamping. And I mentioned this on that other session, but I don't know if there's a better term, but it's just kind of like real-time time stamping. And I find myself doing this in my notes, which are actually mind map. I take notes in a mind map and cartographer as well, I guess, in that sense. And I'm when something exceeds my capacity to keep up in real time with the notes, then I just flag it with a timestamp. And I think that's really valuable to kind of send these flags to self, at least, kind of, trail marks, the breadcrumbs or whatever, to go back. And I think, again, the real time doing that is really valuable. Lauren, you're muted.
Lauren, you're on mute.
So, so I prepared a little document. I didn't prepare very long, so it's not incredibly populated, but I did go through a previous session we've had. So I do have some Post-it notes that we can kind of play around with. And Alex, you'll be super excited because there's stars involved.
Alex looks excited.
Need some coffee there, Alex.
Hang on just a second. I'm going to give you the link. So there are two ways you can either just view this or you can join it. But to join it, you have to do a little sign up with Miro. So I hope you'll do that because it will make it more fun. Otherwise, you can just, look at it and I'll be sharing it too. And so, it's your choice. But I'll share both of them. Hang on. Okay, here we go. And that one is to edit. And now I will send you a public link. And I'll also share my screen. So basically, I want to say there's absolutely not one way to map these conversations. I'm just kind of showing you what I'm doing visually, and my hope, my secret dream,
Lauren,
is that if
sorry.
you have like, 100,
Lauren,
yeah.
Excuse me for interrupting. Can you just maybe try without the headphones, because it's really crunchy?
Yeah.
Maybe if that's possible.
Is this better?
Sorry. Yeah, it is. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay.
I can recording. Yeah.
I can also use these.
I think it's fine like this. Yeah. What do you think, Sam?
Is this better?
It was definitely crunchy earlier, but now it sounds a little bit better.
How is this?
It's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen.
So interesting, I signed up and then I got the sign up page again.
Oh God. It seems like they've been having problems like with it not being easy to sign up. It's really frustrating because it should be so easy. Okay. So I took a conversation, one that I was in before, and it's super slow. Okay, so and then I just started kind of dividing it up. I took people's quotes and then I put them to the person. So this is one way to do it. We can also do this by topic as well. And so we can build up over time different boards with different topics and then different people. There's also, with these, you can see my screen. There's a way
looks
to
like a lot of work.
tag them, so I can tag this as Sam.
I'm really impressed by how much work went into this.
It's not, I can actually do this all on the flow.
By the way, the crunchiness seems to be back for me.
I can do it in the flow. That's the thing. That's the
Yeah, your audio's still kind of crappy there, Lauren. Sorry. I don't know what
And
to do.
there's a lag in the video too.
I didn't see that. It could be a connection.
Okay. Is it better?
Are you still out in the outskirts of French countryside?
Yeah, but I have high-speed fiber.
Wow. I can hear myself with about a 3 or 4 second delay.
I hear that now too. It just started. Fascinating. Fascinating.
Okay, so as you can see with this,
everybody log out and log back in. Everybody log out and log
Oh,
back
please
in.
don't do that.
oh,
I think that's overkill. I think that's overkill.
Somebody put
Does somebody have two
correlated
devices on?
punch bowl here.
Testing. Okay. I'm still hearing an echo.
it's okay for me.
All right. Then let me go on mute and see if I'm the
Okay, I'm testing. Is it okay?
Check.
It was okay, yeah. I heard Sam with an echo.
I was echoing before, but now I'm not.
It might be me. I might be the problem. Sorry
But
about that.
Okay.
Okay, I'll keep myself on mute.
Okay, so anyway, what we can do during these conversations, just like Alex wanted to, there are stars, and you can just grab a star like this. You can just grab it, drag it around, and you can put it on a quote that you like, and that way other people can kind of just get feedback on what other people are appreciating, and it's super easy to do that. So what I'm hoping is that we can also use something like Miro to start building up people's profiles over time based on common themes about what they talk about. And even we could do a profiling session. I think it might take too long because there's so many people here, but we can kind of do a deep profiling session where people give feedback on others and say, give their perspective on other people and what role they play in the conversation and things that they've noticed over time. So people can get feedback on what their special gifts are in that conversation and how they've contributed to it. And you can also, and we could chop those up into little videos and put them on the board too, just to give like a richer kind of view of everyone, so that someone like Kayla, who's new, could just kind of jump in and start to see these things. For example, I put the summary of the GCC. Sorry, right up here, so that someone would have an idea of the history. We could put links to where you can find the videos and whatever else. So at this point, I'm just going to open it up to people's feedback and ideas.
The first obvious question, is this a paid or a free service? I haven't tried it yet.
Well, you can have 5 boards for free. I'm gonna see if I can get them to kind of sponsor us. But you can have, and when I say board, you can have like 50 boards within one board, but it's like one huge board, and that counts as one. So that's free.
So let me just ask, if I have one board that stands for barn raising, and within it, a board that stands for each Saturday, it goes on for like 200 of such boards. Would that work?
Yeah, you could do that.
Cool. I'll try it today.
Okay, so for the rest of the conversation, I'll be taking notes, and I'll be on the board doing this in real time and finding images and stuff like that.
So the second question was those little snippets, those little snippet cards. Was that from one particular GCC session, or was that called from a number of multiple sessions?
It was from a particular one, which I just put through Otter and then highlighted it and copied and pasted. But it was like it was a session with a little bit of tension. So I thought it actually had some quotes that sounded like, this sounds like Sam, and this sounds like Josh, and the thing just like everyone just sounded like themselves.
I think when there's some tension in a conversation, there's more progress being made and everything's flowing smoothly, because that's where the breakthroughs occur. Over.
I think this flowing smoothly, you're implying perhaps that it's like more linear. And I think in my experience, there's still relative breakthroughs or progress, or how you want to label these metaphors, without necessarily tension, or maybe that's just variations in the nature of the tension. It could be good tension or bad tension.
It could be enthusiastic piling on, which is kind of cool also.
That's right.
Versus dogpiling, right?
Yeah, the specifics apply context to the situation. It's like an oil on a machine helps it run better, but if you're sandpapering a piece of wood, the heavier grit on the sandpaper makes it work better. So it's all in context of the situation. Over.
Okay, I was about to ask Laura a question, but she's on the phone. Okay. Actually, let me ask you this. Has anybody else here, other than Lauren and Charles, used Miro?
I haven't actually used it much yet. I'm kind of dipping my toe in the water, to be honest, but it's pretty awesome. I've seen the capacities and the wide range of how people use it, and the different styles and the different features, and it's pretty great, it seems to be.
I would expect somebody has tried using it for Agile.
Well, I've used it with Fallon just to help organize his ideas. And Agile, I have the tools that I use from work, which I'm more comfortable with. That's Microsoft Team Foundation Server. But yeah, it can be used. But I think a key thing is the overload. We have things in so many different tools, and learning new tools, there's always this resistance. So yeah, I mean, it's nice, it's beautiful. I'm not there yet, but yeah, it looks good, but I don't think I'll use it for everything yet. yeah, there's that adoption curve.
As almost an aside, but hopefully something that I can connect to what Lauren and Charles are doing. I wrote a blog entry this week. I don't know how many of you actually saw that I'm back on the brain as of the last 24 hours or so. Has anybody had a chance to go through the brain in its current WIP, work in progress format?
You share a link of your blog, if you would?
Let me see if I can. Hang on one second.
Saw that you had a post. I saw the first few posts.
It's 9 hours.
Ooh, okay. All right. Yeah, let me take a few seconds to find the link and post it.
I was getting excited about the stars because there's a lot of good ones in Hollywood, a lot of bad ones too. There's a lot of assholes in Hollywood, but the good ones are worth pursuing. And when it turned out to be not that kind of star, I felt so disappointed. Over.
Okay, I just shared a short URL to one of my brains. It's the one on collaborology that just started yesterday. Brief context here. I was on the brain up until about 4 years ago, and I lost half my data. I got spooked, but I just got on yesterday again. Eric, thanks to you from 2 weeks ago, okay? So I just wanted to say that you stimulated my re-engagement with the brain, so I wanted to take advantage of V11, okay? So I just started putting things there as of yesterday.
You mentioned talking to Jerry. Is there some quick thing you could say about that, or we'll come back to it?
Jerry is doing something very exciting, but it's very private right now. So he's not ready to go public with it. All I want to say is I'm excited because now I'm in the conversation, and I love what he's doing. One of the things he's doing that is public, by the way, is he's collecting all information he can get his hands on COVID and coronavirus. And he's sharing that with all kinds of associations. So if you are interested in research or social impacts or recommendations or the latest news or whatever on coronavirus, go to Jerry's Brain. It's jerrysbrain.com. Look for Corona and you'll find it. Okay, it's hundreds, if not thousands of nodes already. In fact, I'll just type that in here, okay? Yeah, just go there and just look for Corona. There's a search box in the lower left. Just type in CORO and it'll come up with all kinds of things. And once you're in, okay? It's pretty obvious how to just click around and explore. So I am really excited because, notwithstanding what Eric says, which is there is an inertia in every one of us, especially in groups, for exploring new things. I'm trying to minimize that inertia in myself. So I'm very willing to look at new things and figure out how to use that with whatever I've already adopted. One of the things I've already adopted, as Lauren knows, is workflowing. My entire life is on workflowing, okay? But it's kind of very two-dimensional, in fact, 1.5 dimensional. And so I'd like to find something else that's more 2D or 3D or multi-dimensional. And the brain certainly, I think, can get close to that. So I'm looking at how to do that. And then now there's Miro, and then there's Trello, and then there's, other things, and there's Google Docs. So I'm trying to make sense out of all of that together, given that we don't yet have that super powerful DKR that Doug Engelbart wanted to build for us. Over for now.
We each have our own sort of sweet spot combinations of tool sets that work, that we're comfortable with, that would probably, if speaking for myself, have a wide range of kind of, between Google and, sort of more or less evil, let's say, in terms of data sovereignty and so forth. And so, yeah, we kind of each have our constellation, and then how do we get, our respective constellations talking to each other and playing nicely with each other.
That's where we have our favorite tools and links on one particular link page, and that link page is linked up to the others in a hub, a central hub called the Collaborology Central Station. It's like having a platform almost, where people can go there and start their own page. At that page that they created, their own little baby. They put their favorite people, their favorite genius ideas, and their favorite tools. And that also has links to the conversations they're involved in with the people with stars, like Lauren said. It's focusing people's particular talents into streams of knowledge-based collaborology. Over.
I'll just remark there that there was a quote attributed to me earlier about value-based profiles, and I think what I meant by that was very close to what Alex just described.
Let me get a 15-second minor rant in here. The web has been for about 30 years all about pages. And the page is this really unstructured thing that, you know, does a few things well, but there's a lot of other things that you really want. So about 10, 15 years ago, I thought there's like 5 primary types that you really ought to introduce onto the web beyond just pages. You know, I think there are people, there's events, there's places, there's products, and there's ideas, okay? And that's, of course, just a first cut at this. Basically, the idea is you need more semantics on links than just a little stupid page. So I would like to figure out how we can do things with ideas and people and events and places, etc. So that's one thing I'd like to see. I mean, pages obviously is a good foundation for it, but I think we're 30 years into the web and we need to come up with some more interesting ideas. Over.
Anyone want to comment on wikis and federated wiki? I'm barely in there myself, but I understand that could be a good approach or response to what you're saying, Sam.
Josh has his hand up, so let me not monopolize. Josh, you want to go?
Hey,
but I
good
will
morning,
respond.
everybody. I just wanted to bring into the conversation Open Graph and its interoperability with all the APIs out there. And has anyone here in the group used Open Graph? QL?
Yeah, I have. Yep.
Is it based on GraphQL?
Could you, yeah, in other words, as a in-between space between other databases, and then parsed it out and then pushed it back to the other databases and synced it all so that everything is all working. Was that you, Colin, that said you used it?
Yeah, GraphQL is pretty interesting. If I'm not mistaken, it's taking over the new APIs, or at least attempting to. I think GitHub has one and a few others. Yeah, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and there's also, you know, the old format of having hyperlinks. But what we're doing is we're getting on the difference of data storage and data querying and graphing and map data, and yeah, I think there's a continuum from the database end of things to the artistic presentation end, and it's depending on who you're talking about and how much memory you want to have for how long. Not computer memory, but context memory.
So let me address that point, then Eric, I'll get back to your point, okay, or Charles, maybe it was the other one. So one is, I'm more interested in the interaction of semantics. So if I say family as in parent, child, and someone else says father, mother, kid, okay, that I want to be able to map to each other as well. So there's a disambiguation of semantics and terms. And that's really the foundation of this thing called Dictopedia that I like to talk about from time to time. So if Open Graph is making that possible, then I love it. If it's still based on precise matching of strings, you know, for identifiers, then what I'm really interested in is that layer above that actually can, you know, disambiguate and resolve. And basically the term here is recognize. You know, I can recognize that JSC sometimes is known as Jaswinder and sometimes known as Jaswinder, you know, what is it, Chagar, Singh Chagar. So yeah, and IBM can sometimes be IBM, sometimes can be International Business Machine, sometimes can be IGS. So that level of disambiguation, I think, is key to intelligence and not addressed yet, as far as I know, by precise APIs. And that's where I'm really interested in the interoperability right now.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Sam, I could be wrong and I'm still learning myself, but by pulling the data out, the more data that you pull out, much like the way the brain works, is it's contextual so that it allows for more data to answer those query questions. That's the way I understand Open Graph. I'm still learning it, but I'm wondering if other people have more knowledge than I do. That's what I'm trying to learn.
Yeah,
Like, is there a reason why?
I'm speaking from ignorance, so ignore what I'm saying if it doesn't apply.
Me
I
too, and
think-
that's why I'm here. So I just want to finish my statement, if you don't mind, Alex, for 1 second. Is if it is possible that there is another interoperability with something like TensorFlow or an artificially intelligent query, then it can answer that question, is JS or Joswin or is IBM, by going in and searching through a neural link, through a machine learning, to answer that question in Open Graph, then populating the other APIs through more flat databases that we pull from places like Miro, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm working with a company that's doing that, and I'm learning, but I'm just wondering if anyone here has that experience. I'm complete. Thank you.
I've got this theory about artificial machine language learning, and it's as if compared to human intelligence, this artificial machine learning creature we've created is like looking at a baby playing with some blocks in a playpen. It's starting to learn, it's starting to awaken, and it's rapidly learning faster than a human can learn. So when we give our web pages metadata for the links and for the search engine optimization, all that stuff, it doesn't appear on the web page, it's all in the background. They're meta tags. They're in the header and footer of the page. That's where you include scripts about your interests and your links, and the machine learning algorithms look at all that stuff and put together their own theory about which database should be linking with which database, and help you find stuff when you search. It helps you find these people who are interested in collaborology, because the AI is doing work in the background. So it's picking up, it's gaining pace. The machine learning is becoming more intelligent as days go by at an exponential rate. We're heading towards that singularity. So we need to cooperate as friends would cooperate in a group. I'm just saying. Over. Thanks, Josh.
So Josh, did you still have your hand up, or can I ask Eric and Charles?
I just wanted to expand on that, because that was my thinking too, Alex. And what I'm starting to understand, especially from using the brain and really understanding how that works, there's another layer of interoperability that's more contextual and less metadata. So if Lauren said this, and then Charles replied this, and then Sam replied this, and Sam is connected to Jerry, and Jerry is studying the COVID virus, and Josh put a pandemic link up on Facebook, and Facebook opened AI because Facebook has worked on Open Graph, then it queries everything Josh has done on Facebook for the last 15 years, then it spits out the information. That's the way I'm understanding it, and I'm just trying to understand if other people have any experience with that type of learning, and that is basic machine learning with TensorFlow. So it's a little bit more, it's taking metadata and then going steps further and asking the computer to make the inferences, and then adjusting it back through the neural net, back through the machine learning to say, yeah, you got it right this time, but you didn't get it right that time. So you flip a switch and have it do the whole process over again, much like Open AI and Go, open, what is it called? The AlphaGo. So therefore, that's how it learned, that exact logic thinking is how it learned how to play against the top Go player. But you're an expert with AI, Sam. That's why I'm asking you. So I'm complete.
Well, I think all of that is true in theory. It can be done. But my experience with AI is I've been booted from Facebook twice in the last couple of months. Once because I posted a number of video and notes updates to GCC. I think I posted like 8 or 10 in a span of a couple of hours, and Facebook kicked me off because they thought I was a spammer. And this happened twice. So
are you using the developer link on Facebook, or you just, how are you logging into Facebook?
It's a real user. I'm saying that this happened. Okay, so I'm saying that the Facebook algorithms, they can be smarter. Right now, they're not very. Okay. And this is true almost everywhere. I mean, we use AI and ML in the company that I work for, and I know the level to which we actually employ it. and you can get a lot done before you get super sophisticated. And so what I'm saying is that not many people are even doing the elementary stuff yet. And so all of this fancy stuff remains, but until they get the super simple stuff correct, all the other stuff is going to be incorrect if it's based on the super simple stuff. So yes, it is possible, and yes, I know that it can be done. And you know, AI, machine learning right now in its current state is like curve fitting. You know, it's like taking a rubber sheet and putting it over a bicycle, and then taking a hair dryer over it. Okay, letting it shrink to the shape of a bicycle. You know, that's what it's doing right now, and it can't really do new things really, really well. So there's still a lot of work to be done. That's a very rough approximation right now.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Lauren if she was finished, and I think we have a retrospective to do on whether we focused or not.
We can do that in about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not sure what time it is exactly.
But there was a question, I believe, raised by either Charles or Eric, possibly directed my direction. So I didn't want to ignore it. I wanted to see if that was still applicable.
No, I think Josh is getting on to, the semantic web. You're mentioning a matter of semantics. It's from the database end to the personal interface end, the holy grail. I'm just wondering if Eric's mind is sparking off like, mine is with all this talk and knowing that you're into this kind of thing, and it's the RDF, Open Graph, all these kind of things are available, but who is going to bring it into the context of a conversation and give you a data butler, and how are you going to use this as it's not work? But that's the thing. And how do you have a memory of where we were? I see the map I made for the GCC kind of as a hub that people could have built off of, but I just never caught in people's minds. And that's why I say Twitch. When people go to Twitch, they're all fired up to do something. So anyway, and the roles is pretty interesting. And I really like the play of the word sorcerer. That was pretty good. Data butler.
I would just like to ask if anyone has any feedback, or if it made you think of any new roles that we could take on in our conversations, and talents that we could kind of harvest to do this. And yeah, just feedback.
Well, that is the question. Has something changed, or is it going to stay the same? And if you picture yourself in a space and you've taken the time to prepare for what it is you're going to do, you could easily say, okay, guys, you watch if everybody doesn't hit the button to record this, because here comes a gem. And this is what I want to say. I say, if we could picture our space, then we could flow and align a lot better and go to where we need to go. If we just come to be at a coffee shop and talk about talking, then, are we here to see Sam's dream, or are we here to just get so many tools we don't know where to go? I think it is a matter of having the ability to be ready for what you're going to do, and how much you disturb it with the tools is how much people want to lean in to curate it or flowitize it, gematize it. So there's many different conversations. So who are you inviting to the room, and what conversation you have, and how ready are they? And I say when you go to Twitch, it's sort of like it's not the idea of black and white two-dimensional platform choice. It's a matter of the mind space that somebody's in when they're engaging, and what is their lingo. They have their own language when they're in there. They have their own symbology. So how do we wrap an app around conversation is kind of the question. And are we building a database or a mind map or something in between, like the brain? So yeah, how much do we want to have people change what they would normally do to follow the tool and turn it into work? And how do we make it not work? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I just want to point out that Charles and Stacy and I, and then the question from Eric, all have had their hands up. So I was just wondering if you're able to make it brief and done.
Yeah, no. I was just waiting for the point where she wanted the feedback, and that was mine. It's all about the mind space and being ready, and that's what okay, I put on my mind maps.
Got it.
I think because there's so many different conversations.
So can we go Charles, Stacy, and me?
So my question is a kind of refresher recap. I've been away from GCC for a while in terms of actually synchronous conversations, and I've barely been in the group on Facebook as well. What is the conversation? What is the global challenge? Is it framed? Is it articulated? Is there someone that can offer the quick version of that and not just a whole bunch of questions, but actually is it articulated in the group, as the group, in the group identity, mission, and so forth at this point? Over.
So if I might respond to that, there is no group identity right now, but each of us individually, like Glenn and others, others, have taken our own versions of it, and those can be posted, and those can be linked to, and those could be carded. So those do exist, you know. So that's the short form. Colin's got his, I've got mine, etc. Do you have more, Charles, or should we go to Stacy?
No, I had inquired about wikis and stuff, but actually I couldn't remember exactly at the moment. It was in response to something that you were kind of laying out.
That was the question that I thought I wanted to respond to.
You might recall that. So thanks.
Yeah. I adore wikis. I think wikis are phenomenal. I think wikis do one thing really well, and that makes everybody equal authors. And I think that is magic that we haven't yet had with many of these tools. Some tools allow multiple people to do it, but they require a learning curve. And anytime you require any learning curve whatsoever, it's an obstacle. It's a speed bump, okay? And as far as I know, there's still a very, very small learning curve for wikis, but most people by now in 2020 have learned how wikis work. So I think that speed bump has been crossed. So I like wikis a lot. Federated wikis, I think, is a good idea. You know, Word's doing good work there too. But again, I think the same problem that bothers me about interoperability is the same problem I'm looking at for whether or not wikis have solved that problem, federated wikis, which is if somebody's got a term over here, somebody's got a different term over here, somebody's got war over here, somebody's got conflict over here, somebody's got battle over here, do those map or do they not map? And it's not a simple yes or no. It's a matter of context. You know, like if I'm talking about accounting, then IBM and IGS both owe me money. But if I'm talking about the person I'm working with, that person's over at one department, not the other department. So it depends on context. So things have to be kind of fluid. They can't be, you know, locked into some RDF representation or some semantic representation for all time. And so there's a bunch of smarts about the context, which then allows you to do the proper disambiguation, in my opinion.
So how can allow me just to respond to that and bring it back to the previous question in regard to the conversation or the identity of the GCC, which is how to get the conversations respectively interoperable in the absence of the identity.
I'm afraid I would monopolize the conversation if I've not already done so by answering this question. Can we?
I have a few thoughts that might relate to this.
Well, Stacy was on deck.
Yeah, Stacy can go first. So.
And then let's go to you.
Yeah, I didn't actually have my hand up, but I'll just say really quickly that I'm very excited about the idea of Twitch. That's something I would definitely use. Yeah, I would, and I don't say that often. And I think it would also be really useful to see which people honed in at the same points. Like, I think that would be another next step.
Stacy, do you mean
see,
Twitch
that would
or
be
do you mean
awesome.
What, Sam?
Do you mean Twitch or do you mean Miro? Because I thought Lauren was showing us Miro.
No, she spoke
I also
about
mentioned Twitch.
Okay.
The idea of being able to have just heard you say something and just have to press a button and have it go back and record it, that's for me. The other thing, Sam, I also want to say I'm really excited that you have a renewed interest in the brain, because probably over a year ago, it was either Colin or Eric who had showed me that. And that's another thing that just hit me. That is perfect. That for somebody like me, I was really interested. I was playing, you know, people tend to, and this kind of goes to some of the other questions that you're asking, I think. What I notice about people is they seem to have these patterns like many different combinations of patterns. And sometimes when you can hone in on one where you connect, you often find that the others follow suit. And I think the brain facilitates that kind of connection and learning. And where the path deviates has a lot to offer as well. I'm complete.
So may I show like 5 seconds or 10 seconds of the brain just to get it into the record here? So let me just do this. Okay, I'm going to show one of the brains. I hope it's the right one. And let me do a share. Okay, are you able to see a brain right now or not?
Not yet. It's.
Oh, really? So I'm on the wrong
booting.
brain. So let me go on the wrong brain. Sorry. I'm on a Mac.
No, it's just loading, Sam. Just hold on.
Okay.
Well,
Do you see one that says collaborology in the upper left? Do you see one that says collaborology in the middle?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the brain works like this. Any idea can be connected to any other idea, okay? So collaborology, I've connected to all of these sub-ideas like mentor, co-visioning, focus, learning modes. If I click on learning modes, now that becomes a central node, and all of these other ideas are now the child nodes. Regular practice, learn by doing, watching a video, stumble upon, remember when somebody said, blah, blah, blah. And then if I go into, let's say, read about, experiment, explore, discover. Yeah, so in each of these, there is the possibility to write text, and then you can associate, like Doug is associated with a lot of things. So I'll have a lot of other projects here called Program for the Future. I've got people associated with Doug. I've got his past associations. Basically, this is a very small brain right now. It's only got a few tens of nodes right now because I just started it yesterday. But you notice that, you know, I can take an idea like collaborology and I can connect it to, let's say, another node like this. I just draw a line, and now if I click on Sam, collaborology is off here to the left, okay? These are all the ideas that have been connected to Sam. So you can then just draw lines to connect ideas, and I think that's really powerful, you know? It's so simple, just a couple of seconds you can actually connect ideas. And so I don't want to monopolize this, I want to stop sharing, but I want to invite you to play with it. And unfortunately, it's very expensive, but it is possible for us to co-create a brain. But they charge you $300 a year if you want to do this per person, okay? So right now, I've not yet paid $300 per person, $300 per year. That's why I'm looking for other options. I mean, I love the brain and what it can do, but they've priced themselves out of consideration for certain use cases like ours.
And the collaboration version is even much more, I think. I haven't
No,
checked in a
that
long
is the
time.
collaboration version.
Oh,
The version I've got right now only costs me $160 a year. But the collaboration version, I mean, right now I can put it up on the web and you can actually read it and view it and navigate it, whatever, but you can't actually, you know, link anything or add any nodes unless you get to the team version of it. That's the sad truth today. Anyway, sorry for that digression there.
Are they approachable for collaboration?
Jerry knows them quite well. So that's one of the things, that's one of the conversations I'm having with Jerry. Josh, can we go Josh and then you, Alex?
Ahead.
Josh? Josh?
When we were talking about creating a trust, yeah, we
Is anybody hearing Josh?
I heard him and then he went in.
I heard a couple words.
Hello.
I heard that.
I hear him when he speaks.
Okay, sorry, I had to take off my headphones because I was taking away the nature sounds for my mom. She was recording the koi fish and she wanted the sounds of the koi fish. So at any rate, my question is, we had mentioned in a previous conversation about possibly forming the GCC as a trust and raising money. And one of the possibilities in doing so would be to create a collaboration with the brain so that that could be paid for by the trust. moving forward. So I just wanted to put that out into the conversation, and I'm complete. Go ahead, Alex.
Thanks, Josh. Alex?
If we each have our own web page, it's a HTML version of a node or a synapse in the brain, because the internet is the brain in that respect. It's like all we need is a little app that will link them all to the database. Over.
Charles?
Just a kind of quick comment also relating to reflecting on Kikolab and where we are in terms of positioning ourselves to approach some of these companies for collaboration, for some kind of cooperation, even if it's simply they're sort of seeing us as worthy of gifting or donating pro bono, however you want to call it. But I think it's more, and the reason that we could, and I use the we broadly, including us here, is that our goals and our mission are aligned, and in fact we can co-evolve the interoperability and the sense making and the efficacy, the impact actually of these tools and of those companies in terms of like the urgency of dealing with global challenges. Over.
Thank you much. Hey, I do realize that we're at the halfway point through the second hour. Unless anybody has something super burning they want to add, I'd like to move into the retrospective part of the conversation. And to do so, I want to first launch the standard polling question. I'm going to leave this poll up for about 15 or 20 seconds. And it's a simple yes/no question. And then I actually am going to try and do 2 other questions today. Let's see if I've learned that skill. Okay, so here's the first question. If I see 10 or more results come in, then I'll stop it. But we've got 11 more seconds. Okay, so we've had 22 seconds already. Okay, so we have 7 votes. Looks like that's all the people that are going to vote. So I'm going to share the results. The results are 6 people said, yes, we did focus. 1 person said no. Anyone like to elaborate on their response, or anyone who did not vote want to elaborate on why they did not vote? I did not vote because I'm the poller, so I am not given the permission to vote, so that's why my vote is not registered. Okay.
I'll just, since I'm the lone no, I'm just curious who wants to venture. What's the topic?
Collaboration.
My understanding, just to jump in, my understanding of the topic is how we capture more than just a raw substrate. How do we identify what's reusable, the idea chunks, and make them in some way recomposable? That was my understanding of the focus.
Yeah, we've been working on that one ever since we got together, was how to record, recall, and reuse information and work better. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, we've stayed on topic today on that one. Complete.
Can I just add? I'd just like to add that it's when you have an image on the screen, like Lauren showed with those tags in Twitch or whatever the program was,
Miro.
and you can see at a glance what issues, what gems are beginning to shine, and the links between them. It's like watching a web of glowing in the dark, of what they call glowworms or something in a cave, and some of them are shining brighter than others. So that gives you the impression of a collaboration developing and the greatest gems shining brighter than the others and coming to the surface. Interesting. Okay.
Thanks. So I want to have room for a lot of discussion, but I want to see if I can get through the other 2 questions here. So let me see if I've learned how to do the other question. Here's question number 2. I'm also going to leave this up for about 20 seconds. Do you see question number 2?
I don't see the
You don't see the poll, Tees? Are you on a phone?
No, I don't have the complete face. I don't see all the faces. I only see the face of the person that is speaking.
All right, so
That's a
again, we've
limited
got
access.
25 seconds. I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results. The results are very similar. 6 people said yes, the moderator's moderation did help keep us focused. 1 person said no. Would it be presumptuous to say that the single no again was Charles, or was that someone else? I can't tell who it is. You can
Sorry,
remain
it
anonymous
was.
if you like.
I was muted, but yeah, because
Okay.
actually I wasn't sure if it was you or Lauren. It was the quote unquote moderator. But anyway, sorry, I'm not trying to be too critical. That's how I took it.
Okay. So what could have improved, Charles, in the moderator's moderation?
Who was the moderator? Because you were sort of the chair, if you will. I don't know. There's different words to use, but Lauren was the kind of guest speaker.
Lauren was invited to be the moderator today.
Okay. Well, Lauren, I guess you could have been more proactive as moderator then, if that's the question.
Might I say proactive how?
I don't know. I feel on the spot here. I'm just, it's a kind of an impression without a lot of high resolution.
So I'm hoping nobody takes anything personally. We're here to learn. So I'm just trying to figure out, what could we have done better?
Sorry, I was just taking some food, but yeah, I don't know. I'm glad to have the interaction. I don't have a lot more detail.
Okay, well, when you do, please share, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing that, and let's see, I see a hand up.
Stacy has her hand up.
Yeah, Stacy, why don't you go, and then I'll put up question number 3.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the participants and the subject matter, I don't think required any stronger moderation. I think it was perfectly, there was no need in the way I saw it to step in and be more proactive.
Okay, so I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to throw up question number 3, okay? Again, I'll leave this up for about 20 seconds.
It sounds like a lot like question number 1.
Question number 1 was, did we have a focus? Question number 3 is, did we co-create? Did we co-create with that focus? Okay, I see 8 results now. So I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results. This time there was no negative poll. So that's fascinating. Anyone want to say any additional words on this particular question? I mean, Lauren already did.
Yeah, I'll just say that my answer there was contingent on, I believe that Lauren was taking notes during the session and putting it into this program. So then I would suppose that there was good co-creation as a result of that. And I also have some other things which I could say now or a little later.
Let me invite you to hold on to that thought, because Kayla's new and Kayla's been very silent. So I'm going to, if I may, Kayla, can I ask you what your impression was of this conversation and whether you understood what was happening, whether it was focused, whether it was well moderated, and we actually co-created anything? You're free to say no, you don't want to say anything, but I'm just inviting you to speak your mind.
Sure. So just to know a little bit about me, I like to observe and listen first. It takes a couple of times for me, and unless I feel kind of compelled to say something, obviously I'm going to say it. I almost want to say the focus here is focus. But Lauren, you had a lot of wonderful material that I would like to just kind of take my time to look at. And again, just because I'm new, I think I just had to observe and absorb everything first. As far as co-creating, I almost wanted to say yes. I didn't vote on either of the previous 2 questions, but the last one I said I would say yes. It was definitely kind of a spin-off, if you will. And I apologize. I was participating in the last couple of GCC meetings, but yesterday I had a lot of avocados and I'm a little slow this morning. Don't ever eat too many avocados.
I don't think it's possible for me to eat too many avocados. I love avocados.
Have to take them slow.
Okay, so the $64,000 question, may I ask Kayla, is based on what you saw and experienced here today. Are you likely or unlikely to attend another barn raising session?
I am likely to attend another barn raising session, and it's just because of my personality. I believe you have to attend a lot. You have to give it a chance several times. There's going to be good sessions, there's going to be bad sessions, and that's just the way I think. But yeah.
No, that's cool. That's great. And I'm sorry if you felt that I was putting you on the spot, but I'm just curious about every newcomer here.
If you want to get me to talk, that's what's going to happen.
Actually, at some point, if you're comfortable, we're going to ask you if you'd like to take a focus topic and moderate us at some point where you feel comfortable doing that. Okay.
Oh yeah, I would love to. I've got a lot.
Awesome. Hey, at this point, I do want to let Glenn have another say, and then I have a response. I actually remember what question I was supposed to respond to. So let me do.
Could
Glenn.
I just quickly chime in? I just wanted to actually tag on what Glenn said just before, which is basically to echo that, pointing to what Lauren was doing with the Miro map and what I was doing with my map, for example, and I'm sure what others were doing in their various notes and sense making. And I think that, so in that sense, I was visualizing literally this kind of co-creation going on with focus. But again, it's sort of, where's the interoperability there? And that's the missing piece that I haven't seen still.
Glenn, would you like to go?
Yeah. I think I might have some ideas that relate to that. Also, have to say I was very impressed by the material that was shared here today. I mean, the work Lauren's done, really impressive. Great to see the brain, great to see all the links that was shared. So that's clearly a big part of the co-creation. And then there was a question about the identity of the GCC and the interoperability. And there was a poll that Sam did about how we define what we're interested in. And one of the things, if I remember right, which everyone said they were interested in, was evolution of consciousness. I think it was almost 100% who clicked that box. And obviously that can be understood in different ways. But there is one emergent idea that I would propose as sort of one of the fundamental links here, and that is that the conversations themselves and the work that may happen in between changes our minds. So it's a process that develops our minds, and also over time can change behavior. And then the other idea closely related to this, that possibly it is in the mind and in behavior that all the global challenges originate. So that if a radical shift can happen in the mind and in behavior, then that directly addresses all the global challenges. That certainly is a point of view that seems very sensible to me. And then in light of that, the model that I kind of see is this model that each person has their own personal knowledge repository, which can be in one or several places. And some of this is shared in our meetings. Then we have the conversation space where we think together and we question various things. Sometimes we go in one direction, but over time, a relatively large number of issues that each person in the room are very interested in surface, and there's some element of feedback that comes. So then we're into the quality of the conversation itself, which is the quality of what is shared and the quality of what is received. So the quality of speaking and the quality of listening. And this may be very difficult to measure, but I don't think we have to measure it. But if we have, let's say, a higher quality of the interaction itself, a higher quality of the presence, we could say, then that is the fundamental factor which feeds into all of the knowledge repositories at once, and also feeds into this larger process over time, where the mind is expanded and perhaps also behavior can develop. And then when this at a later stage could get codified, this relates very much to everything Alex speaks about with the different web pages, but also obviously the maps and the brain. If it can be codified for each person, and they each have, let's say, each have our own brain, which is continuously developing, because we also think between these conversations and hopefully evolve our understanding. And then once again, we need to share. Then we come to this point, which addresses Sam's wish to describe, where there is a potential for an interoperability, where I can take from the other brains into my brain. They can take from all the brains into their brain, depending on what they feel is interesting. Some of this will happen organically. So this is sort of the basic model that I see, that you have a large number of individuals who each have their own brain and their own knowledge repository and their own process and their own understanding. And they develop this, but through sharing, we then feed into each of the brains from the whole room. So this probably can't be measured, and it's probably no point trying to measure it. It's very, very complex, but it's an organic process of growth. And that seems to me like the natural way good conversations work. That we just share, we listen, we think in between, we develop each our views, then we come back. So it's almost like a breathing, you breathe in, you breathe out. And over a longer period of time, some ideas also come back many times and it's sort of engage more strongly. And that can also be a signal that there's some very essential insights there that relate to the shared purpose of all the people in the room. And obviously, once again, I said this before, but I'm a strong believer in this format we're currently trying, where you have one person at a time who prepares something and then the others can listen, because that does bring a focus and direction. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. I'm realizing that we have about 12 minutes before the top of the hour. I have a number of things that I wanted to respond, because I hear a question from Lauren that I don't think has been addressed yet. So does anybody else have any others? Because I'm likely to go for at least a minute. Okay, so here it is. Lauren asked the question earlier, which was, does this stimulate the idea of roles, or I'm reading into what Lauren's question was, skills that we might want to consider as we have some of these conversations? And I think it might be too obvious to say, well, you know, if we had the ability to create these cards as we're going, you know, then some of us could actually take on a role like that, or a few of us could actually decide to do it, as long as it's opt-in and not mandatory, okay? Then I think that's a possibility. And then there's roles for post-event, post-conversation processing or connection of those ideas as well. So there's the real-time roles, there's the post-real-time roles. I think both need to be considered. And both have associated skills. Like some people may be able to listen well, but not be able to take notes as they listen. Some people can do both, you know? So it's not incumbent on everyone to actually do this. Charles, you asked a question about interoperability, which yes, it is a key crucial question. But
can I just quickly comment on the roles thing? This is a super quick thing, which is simply kind of what you just touched on, but like the skill level, the learning curve of the respective roles, and also the kind of sweet spot comfort zone of any given person taking on a given role or set of roles, and then sort of expanding the range of one's skills and comfort zone, getting out of the comfort zone, and then actually switching roles or rotating. I just wanted to flash on all that because it's something it's alive with me now. Thanks.
Okay. Clearly, all of these threads are going to go on ad infinitum. So, if I don't respond directly to it, it's not out of the fact that I don't want to consider it. It's that we are short on time here, and we can say that. By the way, Charles, you are also invited to take one of these future Saturdays to bring us a focus and bring us your moderation skills, if you like. Okay. So
thank you.
Is
Appreciate
now,
that.
Is
cool.
now in front of you and Kayla and Jaswinder and myself, because we are the 4, and Tees, by the way, Tees, if you like. So we are the 5 that have not yet done. Tees is declining. So we are the 4 that have to consider, could consider this question. So I just wanted to answer a little bit your interoperability question. I think the web is wonderful because it has links, and links are very simple right now. So there's always been this argument of, should links be typed? Should links be bidirectional? Should links be rich? And I think part of what makes the web work is because links are simple. They're not bidirectional, so they can be dangling, they can be dead, they lead to 404s. But if it weren't unidirectional, if they weren't simple to create, the web would not have grown to what it is today. So at the very basic level, the web only has links today. What we're talking about is potentially a richer set of connections. And so I think whatever we have, in almost a common sense move, would either be based on links, or you're actually trying to create something different, which would be very difficult. Okay, so that's one very unsatisfactory answer to your question. I am looking for the semantics on top of links, which is the recognition piece. And I've said that 3 times already, because I think that's really where the rub is. And everything else is implementation details, but that's, to me, the problem to be solved. Implementation details, we got a lot of smart engineers that can solve that. Interoperability, that can be solved. I believe that's been solved thousands of times, okay? But the semantics disambiguation has not yet been solved. I also notice a trend in the 3 years of these conversations in that they used to be very, very facial. We just used to look at people's faces. But more and more as we go, we're bringing in the visuals, like Lauren did today with Miro. I've done a little bit with the brain. Colin's done with Coggle. Other people have done with Trello. So bit more and more, we're beginning to share some of these artifacts in a non-scary way. 3 years ago when we tried this, it was very scary to some people, okay? So we actually, put that at a minimum. But right now, I think people are more comfortable with it. I'm actually happy with it because these visuals give us context and let us say, okay, on this map, we're here right now. And 10 minutes ago, we were over here. And oh, by the way, that link is dangling because nobody's responded to it. So that's the kind of thing you can do with these visuals that we weren't able to do 3 years ago. So that sense of evolution of our conversations, to me, is very rich. I could not imagine this conversation taking place 3 years ago. That's really what I'm saying, okay? It took us 3 years to get here. So people can say, yeah, that's way too long. But on the other hand, it is an achievement because we've addressed a lot of things along the way. And we've gotten to know a number of things. The way that we actually do some of this memory business, I'm actually more and more impressed with something I've not yet brought up today. That is GitHub. I don't know if many of you know about GitHub, but GitHub is a phenomenal resource in the open source world. It is how people reuse other people's work with the proper licensing. And I'll say some more in a different session, but I just wanted to put that placeholder there because I think this reuse, this collaboration, GitHub has got to a level of sophistication that I think is, to my knowledge, unmatched in almost any domain. So I'd like to just put that out there. So that's really what I wanted to close with. And I know we've got a few minutes left, so I'd like to move into a round of checkouts if people feel so compelled to check out. before we do, I want to say, Lauren, thank you very much. I wasn't able to vote, but I think we focused. I think you did an appropriate level of moderation, as Stacy said. I think that the kind of richness of interaction was, to me, a part of the co-creation process that got started. We won't tell how rich it is unless some of us, at least one of us, create some artifacts as a result of this so that we have something that can be put into group memory that can be built upon. But anyway, I think we have a very good start. So thank you very much.
I've been doing that through our session here.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing. Do you want to put it up quickly if you want?
Yeah, so what I did, I'll just show you what I did and what I can do pretty quickly. So I just, since I had already, I've been doing this by person, but on each tag, I also do the date and the person. So what I can do is just make another little table. So these are based on the person, and those are for the profiles. Basically, if someone says something, I put it under their profile. But super easily, I can create another one of these, like this. And then we can do this by day. And we can have the subject. What is the subject for today? How would you describe it, Sam? Anyone can take on the role of summarizing?
Moderator Lauren, that's all. So then you can put in the subject that you thought was the subject. So you put in your name.
Okay.
Because you were the first today, so it's the first moderation for you today.
Okay, so then I can just take the sticky notes from today's date and put them all on there. So we can see by subject / date and by person.
Do they stay in both places or do they get moved?
We can just repeat them because they're very lightweight and just have it repeat, I think.
But the question is, if you change it in one place, does it change in the other place, or are they two separate copies?
I think they're two separate copies.
Okay. All right.
Unfortunately.
So will you share a link to this page in that?
Yeah, sure.
Lauren already has, right? You already shared it.
I did. Yeah. If you need me to share it again, I can.
It's in the notes.
That's what Sam meant about reaching a foundation, that we do have a way to track what we did. It's just how do we play with that time lever and go forward and backwards with memory, right? So the technology is there. It's just how do we get our headspace around it, and what context are we using it for? How do we organize? How do we navigate? That's always been it, and I know Lauren knows that, but I like the extra twist that Lauren's always been talking to me about, which is harvesting the gems and trying to, she's been very strong on profiles as well. So I'm interested if you'd zoom in on my card, what was there?
Yeah. Here, this is what I pulled out from Colin. People don't want you to stop the conversation and say, this is a gem.
Well, there's different conversations. I guess that's the main point, is to realize that there's like a different color of this tool for each conversation with a different level of engagement.
Yeah. I'll stop.
I've got a question. What's the term you use to refer to a person's gems? Is it a jeweler? Just a jeweler?
Something you want people to repeat, and something you're proud of saying, or something you're proud or excited about somebody else saying, something that stands out. Yeah, a shiny piece of information.
Yeah,
a mentor. Yeah, it's like having a mentor space for these gem polishers.
Lauren was making them in the cards. I like the cards that Lauren made with the gems on them, like the one with the misshapen carrot and pear. That's a gem of another kind, but that's a gem, right?
So I find the interesting thing is that was a different conversation, and that conversation led to this pictorial representation, and this one doesn't. It's much harder to find pictures to illustrate this conversation.
Yeah, that's the point about that's the context and the different kinds of conversations. So if you know you're going into conversation type A, you say, oh, well, I'm going to use this section of tools out of my kit. because I find that, you know, I'm at the point now where I'm thinking about more like you, how to do it better than putting all the work into it. But I'm really glad to see it. And if any focus today, you focused me to go ahead and maybe myself do a little more things that I want to do, because you inspire me with the amount of work you put into this. So thank you.
Charles?
Lauren, I was wondering if you would comment at all and sort of maybe point to some of the things that we're cooking up in the Kiko Lab in regard to memes, and how all of this is sort of directly related to memes, and then getting ideas out there and cross-pollinating ideas.
Yeah, and I did show the Pinterest board.
It's 10 hours.
Oh, it's time to go. So I did show the Pinterest board, which is kind of like my meme board, basically reducing these long conversations, finding the gems. Those are my favorite gems that I put on my Pinterest board. So that's my methodology of showing my personal gems. Yeah.
So I want to echo Colin. I am going to sign up with Miro. I am inspired, especially if it's a collaborative thing. So I'm going to build on that and try and create my own mental model of how I use Workflowy, the brain, Google Docs, Miro, Trello, blah, 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 you know. So I'm going to try and make sense out of all of that for myself. Anybody else have any other comments? Lauren, is there anything that you wanted to get to that you didn't?
Yeah, I just wanted to show you 30 seconds. These are the integrations with Miro. So it's actually in terms of interoperability. The software that I looked at, it has a lot of integrations with Salesforce and Trello and Adobe and all these different things. So it was you know, OneNote, etc. Okay. So I just want to say
OneNote. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Watch
that's
out,
why I picked
world.
it over something like Miro. Yeah, really good integrations. So maybe this is one of the tools that we can use to visualize, you know, and have a repository for other things. And it could also be a tool that we could use to show 100 conversations at once, having a few gems from each one and being able to compare the different groups and what they're talking about.
I think it's a great prototyping tool and useful one. Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
I like it too. Yeah.
So is our want, I would invite a round of checkouts, but there's no need to shut the system down. I just want to make sure that people are given a chance to do the checkouts. Then I'll leave the session open for as long as you guys want to have this conversation.
I'd like to put some plants in the garden on the spaceship. Just wonder would have something to contribute before I check out.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Before time goes, Jaswinder, I wanted to ask you again. You said that there was a possibility you could take next week. Have you given that some more thought?
Yeah, I think I'm okay for next week.
Great. You're on for next week. And then Joshua, I believe you're on for the week following because that's the day after your data resets. Yes?
Yeah, I was going to ask, having Kayla as a newcomer to the group, I would offer to give that slot to Kayla, or if someone else wants to take that slot, because it only gives me 2 days to prepare for it. Whereas if I had another week, it would be a better meeting. So that I have
What's your date? You have 2 weeks from now.
Correct, but I don't have enough data. I'm actually using up the very last of it, and it will end in about 2 days. So I'll be without data for another week or so before the meeting. So I'm offering that slot to someone else, and that gives me some time when the data resets. So if anyone would like to take my slot, and I'm going to offer it to Kayla first, or if anyone else wants to take it.
I see Charles.
Well, is Kayla called? Perhaps
Kayla.
I'm fine with that too.
Okay, Kayla, you get first right of refusal on that week.
I'm sorry, Josh. Thank you so much. I'm going to refuse that week and open it up to anybody else.
Okay.
So I'm thinking a cautious yes. What's the date? And I just want to write it down and
okay.
Make
So
sure
today is what, 16th. So it would be, I think, the 30th. 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
May 30th.
Okay. I think this is good, and
it's sort of right in our cycle of roundtable conversations at Kiko Lab, and so I will try to associate those things and come up with something.
Okay.
Let me say probably yes, and then can I confirm shortly?
Yeah, we'll confirm you in pencil, just like we did with Jaswinder last week. So it's Jaswinder, then you penciled in, then Josh penciled in, and then possibly Kayla sometime after that, and then I'm also on deck. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And just let me know, Charles. I was going to say I have it on my calendar, so if you do take it, I'll take it off. So just keep me posted.
Sure. So where's the best way? I just going to check my calendar and
Actually, why don't you guys decide it now? Josh, would you prefer to do the 30th since your data just reset on the 28th? Or would it be too dangerous to wait 9 days after your data resets and you might actually run out of data?
I'd prefer not to do it on the 30th. So if Charles can take it, that would be my preference.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's like, I would say 90 to 95% definite, and I just have to check a little thing.
That's good enough for me. Okay.
Okay.
Jaswinder, Charles, Joshua, and then TBD. All right. All right. At this point, I'm going to go into non-moderation mode. I'm going to listen, probably heckle a little bit, and then we can go as long as you guys want.
All right. That's an analogy
I would
I'd like
invite
to.
anyone else to moderate. Lauren, do you want to moderate since it's your session today?
No, I'm done.
Anybody want to moderate? Kayla, why don't you take charge? We're hard to moderate. I just want to warn you.
Bye, Eric.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
I'll just say I have to get going now, but I really enjoyed the session. So thanks all of you.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Stacey, would you like to moderate?
No, because I'm going to turn off my video too and listen in because I have some things to do, but I'll check out, which
Okay.
is just.
This will be a free-flowing conversation then if nobody's going to moderate, okay?
Okay, but I'm checking out first.
Warning,
so I'm
warning.
moderating for a minute just to give myself the floor.
There you go.
So now that I have the floor, I really enjoyed this session. I'm sorry I missed that talk on the Divine Feminine. I'm not getting like the schedule for the calls, but if I understood Charles right, Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time?
That was just
No,
from the
no,
Collective
that's something else.
Intelligence Block Party. Which, yeah, so that's an event. Nolan, Strait, and Jamin Shively are doing that, and it's like a 24-hour block party. It's like a Zoom thing, a Zoom hang for 24 hours. They do it straight, so you can
Does
just
it
pop
happen
in whenever you want
regularly?
to, and it's super casually. And they do it every week. They're totally
I'm
insane.
gonna message you for the info because that
Radish.org. You just go to radish.org, and I think they have it all posted there.
RADISH. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Radical Collective Intelligence is their thing. There is an email list that you can get on from Jamin Shively, and so that has more details. But basically, it should all be there on the site, I guess.
Okay, great.
So Stacey, you still wanted to check out, right? You're not done yet, right?
That's my checkout. I'm good. I enjoyed it. It was nice to be here. I'm gonna listen in the background. I have to be out of my house in 2 weeks, so I just have to get up and start packing. No, it's a good thing. It's been planned, but the virus pushed me off a bit.
Yeah, talk about the virus. I attended a class last night. It was a 2-hour class. And believe it or not, it is on one of the problems that most of us may have but aren't talking about, which is this enforced celibacy that we've all been in, or most of us, many of us have been in for the last 7
Maybe
or
I'll
8
stay on. Wait a minute.
So anyway, it was fun to get other people's interesting perspectives on how they've been handling that in these 7 or 8 weeks. That was, I mean, think about all the kinds of things you connect, and how people feel and how they think and what kind of energy flows through them, So it was an awesome talk, but for some people too private, right? But others, this is just life. So I kind of like.
Did they talk about digital celibacy?
All of it, yes. We talked about how you sublimate, and how you create, and how you do other things, or whether or not you seek other avenues, or whether you just violate protocol and go on a booty call or whatever. So we talked about all that. Oh, sorry to put a stop to the conversation. Everybody's thinking now. I wish I
was
could
on.
see all your
I
mental images.
so speaking of the virus, I mean, again, another plug for Kiko Lab and our roundtable said, you know, the frame of the next month's conversation is rapid sense making and the pandemic. And but so some of us in and around Kiko Lab have been really deep diving as best we can and kind of exhausting ourselves as well with data, with all kinds of, you know, channels and so I'm very excited about Tuesday's session with Howard Rheingold and others, Roland Legrand and a few other students of Howard's and Open Learning Commons people around data, metrics, and crap detection. So crap detection is not Howard's term that he coined, but he kind of pioneered it in terms of like the field of so-called crap detection. And so, yeah, I just wanted to give a plug for that. That's not 9 o'clock Central Europe time. If you go to openlearning.cc, I think you can find probably the Zoom link and the Telegram channel. But anyway, we can share that here. I just wanted to say, last night I found myself in a so-called town hall meeting with a guy called Yanir Baryam. Some of you might know. He started this project called endcoronavirus.org, and he's part of the New England Complexity Science Institute, and really one of the pioneers. I consider him really one of the leading forces of solving this thing, whatever this thing is. It's a singular thing. And so endcoronavirus.org, and there's a gigantic, like the biggest Slack group I've ever seen with like 1 million channels, like all split out. And so it was cool to get to know him, and he seems like a really good guy, and he's doing amazing work. But they don't really have the space holding online community thing together so much. So maybe that's it. I learned a bunch actually in a short time, but it was too short, and it could have been better moderated. So there you go.
Well, given a slight lull, I wanted to say that this actually brings up this network of networks idea. You know, there are these network improvement communities that try to improve how we do things. And then on top of that, there are these networks of networks that are trying to cross-pollinate these learnings across domains. And I see that much in effect these days. You know, Doug would be happy if you were live to see all of this. There's still things he'd like to see happen in all of them. With better, you know, sharing of lessons and better sharing of knowledge, but at least it's happening to some extent. Josh has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to share the 3 years that I was working with the Microbiome Learning Center and the project to learn about how the microbiome works. One of the subjects that got brought up last week was very interesting, and it comes from a book from Bruce Lipton called The Biology of Belief. And it's the understanding of how our cells and our microbiome and our bodies work, because the environmental factors on the body explains a lot about why the virus is operating differently with different people in different locations all around the world. So it explains a lot about how we're expressing our gene expression versus our environment, and why people are getting the coronavirus and expressing how their antibodies fight the virus differently. So it explains a lot, just environmental factors. And I just wanted to bring that up for people that, for me, I'm quite the conspiracy theorist. So I'm trying to understand what's going on. And at the same time, by putting that link of knowledge of environmental factors into how your genes are expressing the antibodies, explains a lot of why things are so confusing throughout the world and why the virus is acting different on different people of different ages. And when you add that environmental factor into it, it explains a lot. So I just wanted to share that. That's what a lot of doctors and health practitioners are learning about the virus at this moment in time. Also, there are other viruses that are expressing differently. I don't want to go too deep. I'm going to just shut myself up before I go too deep. But the point being is that if you had a previous virus, that also is going to be a factor as well. So that is an environmental factor. And it's just interesting to not jump to conclusions of doctors are killing people, et cetera, more that the actual environment of New York City, there's not a lot of nature around Manhattan. Thus, people's antibodies are geared towards the environment of the subway, of the streets, of the concrete jungle, versus the environment in Kansas City or the way that the virus is expressing in India or in Mexico, with very different environmental factors of how we create antibodies for all of the different contagions that are in that country. So just like when you travel, you get certain shots to go to different areas, that plays a big factor in how the coronavirus expresses itself in different people's bodies. So I just wanted to bring that up there to help people to understand that's what we're all learning. And it is a learning process. So with that, I'm complete.
Josh, are you saying that he has some latest articles or videos based on the coronavirus incident? Because I've seen his previous work. It goes back 20 years. If anybody doesn't know, basically he's the guy that says your DNA changes based on how you feel and what you think. And that is a fundamental, new shift in the way people understand biology. But has he created anything recently since like in the last 2 months?
Well, I'm saying just by understanding that factor of he created and coined, I believe he's the one that coined the phrase epigenetics. And in understanding that how our DNA expresses, it's also the type of food you eat. So for example, if the honeybees around you are pollinating certain crops and those crops have been compromised with glyphosates, et cetera, the way that your body is going to interact with all of the pollen that's floating around in springtime is going to be different from different environments. If you're in Iowa versus where you are, Sam, in Seattle, versus where I am in the desert mountains of California, our bodies and our antibodies are going to express themselves differently, and our immune systems are going to be different. Thus, the virus is going to affect us differently, if that makes any sense.
Nature and nurture, both.
And one of the things for health people say is to eat the local foods, and it just brings more of an urgency to eat foods locally because they're more in tune with the way that our bodies are breathing in the microbes locally. Thus, we're getting nutrients that are creating a homeostasis, whereas if I'm eating an orange from Florida versus a blueberry from Peru, it's going to express itself differently in my body versus the oranges or blueberries from the lake area.
Hey, Josh,
I'd love to see the experiment that tracks that one.
I just found the first occurrence of epigenetic term was 1990, Holiday, the DNA methylation and epigenetic inheritance, philosophical transactions in the Royal Society of London. I was curious to see when it, yeah, it's very recent. It's very, very recent.
It's very recent. I believe that in London, that was because of the work that Bruce Lipton had done in taking the brain out of the cell and the cell still living with the brain outside of it, which is what gave him his aha moment and brought him into that woo-woo space of, hey, maybe our brains are affecting the expression of the DNA to the RNA, meaning it's not, we were always taught that, well, that's your genes, there's nothing you can do about it. And he blew the lid off of that.
Yeah.
And
big
it's
time.
a very fascinating book, The Biology of Belief.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. I wonder if it's more amazing that we don't think the environment affects us. But the thing is mapping how it truly affects us, based on your blueberry experiment versus, what Sam was saying, even your emotions. Is there a homeostasis in the local area? I do know that there's a lot about gut science and different people's health from different parts of the world where they have different, food. So their diet is geared towards certain things. I remember something about certain shellfish creating something special in the Japanese. I'm not sure if I remember that correctly, but yeah, there's some really interesting things in that category. And we are completely, or mostly, I should say, made up of other living bacteria and different things. So to say, it's not that we want to get rid of germs. We want to, define germs and which ones are good, which ones are bad, or, it's almost like trying to map out your, I guess, your epigenetic environment, I guess, is what you're getting at. And I'm wondering how much popularity that's gaining today. Like you say, it starts to get into the woo, but there's that line where, you know, the woo is just ignorance, and there's something to it. You know, I think acupuncture is one of those things. When I was a kid, everybody thought it was woo, and then, you know, apparently it does a lot. Like I'm wondering, versus chiropractic versus, you know, obviously microdosing, I don't think is quite valid. But there's so many of these things, so we could track them with the brain and say, okay, well, I said this and this is when I said it, and it's a gem or not. But how do you validate it and bring it into context to give it a confidence level and, you know, that kind of stuff?
Well, can I respond to that? The point is, any new idea, when first surfaced, is always identified as a quack idea, conspiracy theory, stupidity, idiocy, right? And it has to withstand that criticism if it actually has merit. So unfortunately, the people that are associated with the idea often are also assaulted, you know, by the current quote unquote establishment. So that is always going to happen. So when an idea first expresses, the question is, are we open enough to really consider it as an idea, or are we quick to dismiss it? And right now, with all this, you know, focus on sources as the foundation of belief, like the mainstream media up until recently, or science, you know, quote unquote. Science is being assaulted by people who don't believe in science. And yet at the same time, you know, they're assaulting the mainstream media because they've got quote unquote their own belief based on whatever else they're being told. So this is a fine balance. If you kill every crazy idea before it even has a chance, you're holding civilization back decades, if not centuries. But if you're too open to it, then you're a quack. So where's that balance? And that balance, I think, is how you track the epistemology, the evidence-based thinking, the critical thinking, the provenance of these ideas. And you can't do that in simple terms. You got to do that in the mass totality of everything that's being considered and being observed. And that's why I think the DKR, in fact, I'll add another D, the DDKR, the distributed dynamic knowledge repository, is so critical. Okay, that's what we need. And otherwise, we just got, you know, loudmouths saying things over here, and possibly someone very silent but very deep thinking saying something over there, and everybody pays attention to the loudmouth. That's the problem with society right now. Over. Josh, you had your hand up.
I was going to say you sound exactly like Eric Weinstein, and I'm loving it. And I'll bring in the phrase that he coined, which is the DISC, the distributed idea suppression complex, that comes out of what you just said. And in suppressing the good knowledge from scientists who have studied this for 40, 50 years, and listening to the person on Fox News who just overheard a conversation but is the loudmouth, I believe that's the problem in the world right now, is we're listening to the wrong people. With that, I'm complete. Go ahead, Just Winter.
Everything is being manipulated via the politicians, who are being manipulated by the corporations, who are putting all the money to themselves. Nobody stands a chance. So if we have a truism, it's got a heck of a fight to get up there. And that's been true since before Darwin's time. People were hanged for their foresight or their knowledge which they gained the hard way, if I remember correctly. And it's still going on. I'm complete.
It's amazing how many people who are friends of the Clintons have committed suicide, for example.
It's not just the Clintons, it's Mr. Blair, it's all sorts of politicians. Yeah.
Before we go into politics, I was just going to say there's a really fascinating idea by a guy named Naveen Jain, who started a company called Infosys a long time ago. And he started a company called Viome, with a V as in Victor, Viome. And what he was doing is taking a microscope from the United States government that's able to look at the bacteria expressing itself of the RNA of the bacteria. And he had a very crazy theory, which is that bacteria works much similar, in my mind at least, to the internet, where it's sending very undetectable light signals to each other to communicate and create the internet of the body. And so the bacteria is not necessarily good or bad. It's how the colonies communicate and eat other colonies and create a biome or a ecosystem, if you will. And that understanding of how bacteria communicates, I think, is the holy grail of medicine to cure 90% of all diseases. Because if we understand how the bacteria communicates, it'll change how the cells communicate. And there's a lady, I want to pronounce her name properly, Stephanie Seneff, I believe, from MIT, who is doing studies on cells and the way the electrical system in the cell works. The electricity is dependent upon the pH balance of the water inside of the cell. So this type of progressive thinking in medicine, she's the one that blew the lid off of glyphosates and how they cause cancer. And the more we understand the electrical system inside of each cell, the more we can understand the communication of the body through things like the vagus nerve and the I can't even pronounce the word. Parasympathetic nervous system. There's a nerve ending called the vagus nerve that goes directly from the brain to the gut, and the gut has actual neurons inside of it. So when it expresses itself, there's a whole study that's been going on for 3,000 years called traditional Chinese medicine, and the electrical system was mapped out on the body, and that's how acupuncture works, is they're actually pointing at a specific point of the body, stimulating the electrical system and activating the parasympathetic nervous system to activate different organs to heal. So these woo-woo Chinese medicine things that people call it is actual science that is very effective and works very well. But I digress. So with that, I'm complete.
No, that's not a digression at all. It's perfect. And Josh, I'd love to get into that further at some point. I see this exactly fitting in with Sam, what you were pointing to, the DDKR, the distributed dynamic knowledge repository, and this idea. I put a comment in the chat a ways up about interoperability of DKRs, and maybe this is a clue here that I think we could really shed light on and sort of activate the electrical signals within that system. You know, the system that we want or that we need. Some of us know that we need to have the DKRs and everything else interoperable. Over.
I'll definitely take a look. This is definitely a good topic. I think the interoperability is definitely part of the stack that needs to be addressed. By the way, if you know Daniel Harris, he's also addressing that part of the problem as well with Kundra.io. Okay, I think I'm going to go grab some brunch at this point. I'm going to leave the session open for you guys, but I think I've probably hit my limit for today.
I think I'm also going to sign off. My battery's going and get to some other things. It's wonderful to be with you all.
Thank you again. Just Windsor, thank you for next week. Charles, thank you for the week after that. Joshua, thank you for the week after that.
Wonderful.
Kendra, thanks. Kayla, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Look forward to learning more about you.
Nice meeting you, Kayla.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to go to, I got 2 dogs and 2 kids.
Yay.
What kind of dogs?
Siberian Husky, he's only 7 months. He's huge.
This guy's 7
How old are your kids?
And then I have 8 and 12. And I'm going to talk to my 12-year-old about Twitch because he is an expert. He's disgustingly intelligent. So,
yeah. This one is 7.5 months. She's a girl. She's like 51, 52 pounds now.
Well, it's nice meeting everybody, and I'll see you guys next week. Yay.
Yes.
Yay.
Thanks all. Okay.